Welcome to the Valve Studio. This past week I went to Denver, and while I was there I stopped by NBS Electronics and I talked with Fat Willie, aka Lord Valve, about tube amplifier design. He's been working on amplifiers since he was a wee lad, probably 60 plus years ago, and he knows a lot more about amplifiers than I will ever know. I thought the segment was going to last about 20 minutes long, but I ended up talking with him for probably about 2 hours. And we talked about all sorts of things about amplifiers. And I've broken this interview up into 7 segments, all sorts of different topics. Like this first one here, we're talking about working with guitarists and how to get information out of them on what they want to hear in terms of what they're looking for in an amplifier. Speaker selection, tone stack design, as well as resistor and capacitor selection. That's what's in this first segment. These are, I know that I learned a lot, and I'm going to use them in my future designs, a lot of this information out of this series. I want to thank him for taking the time out of his busy day to do this for me here at the Valve Studio. Fat Willie's a very opinionated individual. He's commonly or frequently a target of flame wars online. And if you are one of the people that want to flame Fat Willie, he will probably never watch this video, any of these segments. And so it doesn't do you any good to actually, be verbal about him, his personality, his views on matters, whatever you perceive them to be. So let's keep the discussion in the comment section here about what he's saying about tube amplifier design. Kind of beg of you to do that, because you're wasting your breath if you're looking for another venue to dig at him. You're being ineffective. Okay, that aside, it's really valuable information. Like I say, there's 7 segments. Here's the first one. Let's get started. So I'm here with Willie at NBS Electronics on Broadway and South Broadway in Denver, and we're going to talk about amplifier design. Willie has a very full, I don't know, what would you call it, a shop?
Yeah, it's a shop.
Okay.
It's sort of a combination between a shop and a pile.
Okay.
A junk pile.
I'll go ahead and show you some footage of his shop here. And it's full of vintage amps. He only works on tube amps, and today we're going to talk about design. I have a bunch of questions specifically around design, not necessarily repairing amplifiers, but things that he's come across in how long have you been doing this?
Well, actually, I started building Heath kits when I was 12.
Okay.
And that would have been in 1960.
Okay. So looking at 50 plus years?
Yeah.
Oh, good. Okay. Well, you've probably seen more stuff than new amp builders today will ever see in their whole lives.
I've seen a few.
Yeah, I bet. Thousands.
Many thousands.
Okay. So a lot of amplifier designers work particularly with guitarists that come in, and they want to. The guitarists have these ambiguous. Terms that they use.
Yes,
and
internet words.
The internet words are things that they've heard from other guitarists or whatever. And how do you take the words like warm and crunch and sweet and deep and all that, and try to extract enough knowledge from the customer to figure out what to
You know what I do? I usually say, well, look, what kind of stuff are you playing, and who do you like? Who are you listening to? I mean, you want to get towards this guy's tone, or you want to get towards this guy's tone, or whatever, you know. And sometimes they say, well, I want to sound like B.B. King. Well, I say, well, it's going to take a lot of practice, and B.B. King plays a solid state amp anyway.
Okay.
He plays a Lab Series Gibson. And the reason he plays is because it's got a nifty little compression circuit right on the input. So it sustains like crazy.
Yeah.
And BB with doing all that wiggling and stuff like that, that the string not ring as long. So he likes that compression.
Oh, okay.
You know.
Okay.
So, you know, sometimes I just ask the cat, I say, well, what do you want to sound like? You know, don't tell me crunch and warm and stuff and, you know, headroom and all these words. A lot of them use those words, they don't know what they mean.
Okay. So it's more about the style of music they're going to play.
Yeah.
And do you find that they also want like contradictory styles of music?
Sometimes, yeah.
And does that complicate the design, or do you just
no? Because I'll say,
two?
Look, you know, what I'll do is I'll say, look, you want that kind of tone, what you're going to need is some pedals. Because let's face it, a lot of that tone that you hear when you listen to CDs and stuff was put on by the engineers.
Okay.
You know, it's effects. And what you want is a good, clean sounding tube amp that's got all that nice warmth to it, if you want it, for lack of a better word, you know.
Right.
And then when you need to shred, well, you can step on a little solid state box and get your shred that way.
Okay.
Especially now, because look, you know, came out of the hippie stuff. You know, I'm a jazz musician, but I played that kind of music to pay the rent.
Okay.
And back then, loud was it.
Right.
Everybody was loud as hell. You know, and you could get fantastic sustain and distortion and stuff out of a 100-watt Marshall driving 8 12-inch speakers with everything turned up to 11.
Right.
You know. But people don't dig that anymore. You go to a nightclub or something, you know, and as soon as you turn it up, you've got the bartender in your face and customers saying, hey, man, you know. So it's not, the boogie till you puke thing is almost gone now.
All right. All right.
So it's easier to have an amp that sounds good, clean, and use whatever kind of pedal with it. And there's a million pedals. I mean, right. The cat next door, have you been in this guy's shop next door here?
No.
He's got more pedals than God.
Okay.
He probably has 500 different pedals in there. He's known, that's what he does.
Oh, does he?
He's known for it, yeah.
Okay.
And so, you know, after I let a guy play one of my amps, and he say, wow, you know, I really like that. It's really good, but I need, you know, shred tone or whatever. And
okay.
So you're not going to get that out of anything I build.
Right.
So I want you to go over here and see Greg, you know, and he'll loan you whatever couple of pedals you want that he suggests, you know. You can bring them back over here, plug in, and see what you got. And if you like it, then we'll make you a deal on the whole package.
Okay.
You know, so it's not always the amp.
Do you find that the guitarists today are more tolerant of lower power amps because they can't play as loud as they used to?
Yes. As a matter of fact, I think that's a big part of the market. There's a lot of amps out there that are 5 watts,
right.
1 watt, amps that use like a 12BH7 or a 12AU7 as the output tube.
Oh, okay.
Driving an actual transformer and everything, you know, so you get the magnetics happening in the output stage and stuff.
Right.
And it sounds good. You know, you can record with it, you can practice with it, you can't gig with it unless you want to put a microphone in front of it.
Yeah, yeah.
You know,
but it's down at the sub watt level.
Yeah, it's not bad. Some of them sound really good.
Okay.
I'm getting ready to build one that's going to use. I have an interesting thing. I found these things on Amazon. They're buck and boost regulator cards.
Right.
And you can put in 24 volts and you can get out 100.
Right.
Or you can put in 20 volts and you can get out 6.
Yep.
You know, so a couple of those with a 24 volt laptop supply and you got a tube amp.
Right. Right.
You know, and I'm going to build one using maybe a 5881 single ended for the output. I'll probably get 5, 6, 7 watts out of it.
Sure.
People are going to love it.
Oh, good.
I might not even use an output transformer. I might capacitively couple the output tube to the speaker.
What does that end up doing to the frequency response?
That's kind of hard to say. I mean, you're probably going to lose something out of the bottom end, but then the bottom end's not that important in a really low-powered amp like that.
Okay.
You know, people are listening for the mid-range. That's what they respond to anyway.
All right.
You know.
All right.
If you want that chug noise, you got to get it from a 50-watt Marshall.
Sure.
So.
So you've done a variety of amplifiers, and you have the choice of various kind of speakers. have you like settled on a core set of speakers you kind of always go to?
Yeah,
or
I have. For the lower powered amplifiers, I'm pretty well using the Weber DT series. I love those speakers. The ceramic magnet. I don't care for alnico. I mean, there's guys who love it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care for it. To me, it's kind of dark and mushy, you know.
Right.
Like that ceramic that cleans up nice when you back off, you know, and sounds good when you drive it hard.
Yep.
And the DT series Webers are on the inefficient side. You can run the amp hot,
right?
You know, and you don't get as much output level as you would with a much more efficient speaker like a JBL or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But sounds good.
Okay.
You know? And so I'm using those in my. I have the Nipper amplifier, which is 16 watts, single 10, with a triode switch that knocks it down to 5 watts.
Mm-hmm.
That gets a DT10. The Napper, the 24-watt version, gets a DT12. And then there's my Jazz amp that Jazz guys just go absolutely ape for this amp. It's the 44-watt Napper with a 15 in it.
Okay.
And nobody builds amps with 15s in them anymore, and they're great. They just sound wonderful.
Is that because they're too big, or they can't ship them, or?
Well, you know what? This amp is smaller than that.
Right.
You know.
Right.
It's basically the same width and thickness as a Princeton Reverb. It's just about another 9 inches taller.
Okay.
Or 8 inches taller. It's
right.
got a 15 in it. You know. Magnificent sounding amplifier. DT15.
Mm-hmm.
The DT series speakers are rated at low wattage. You know,
right.
The 10 is I think it's 25 watts, and the 12 is 35, and the 15 is 50.
Right.
So it's a good sounding guitar speaker, really good sounding guitar speaker. And I had a hand in helping Ted Weber build the original DT10s. So I'm kind of partial to them anyway.
Sure, sure.
But it's a great sounding speaker. I use some other things, and you know, I build a clone of the JTM 45,
mm-hmm.
An amp technically Marshall never built, which is a JTM 45 chassis with a single 12 under it, combo amp.
Okay.
Be a 112 blues breaker. I build it 212s too, but that one I use. It depends on how old the guy is. If he's an old guy,
right.
He gets a Celestion Century Vintage, which is neodymium magnet Vintage 30.
Right.
Chops about 9 pounds off the weight of the amp. It sounds good.
You pick a lighter speaker because he's old?
Yeah.
Or you pick a vintage speaker because he's old?
No.
Okay.
Lighter.
Lighter. Okay.
I'll tell you, you get a guy who comes in here and he's been playing the same twin reverb for 30 years. And it's got a pair of EV SROs in it.
Yeah.
Like the heaviest speaker there ever was, you know, aside from some Gauss weirdness or whatever. They come and say, oh, man, I'm going to get rid of my twin. Oh, wait a minute. Let's put a pair of these in there, you know. A pair of Celestion Century Vintage 12-inch weighs 7 pounds.
A pair of them?
Yeah.
Oh, that's nothing.
They weigh nothing.
Right.
Yeah. What I like to do is hand the guy one in a cardboard box. Man, the guy will bet you money the box is empty. They weigh nothing. So this guy had 50, 60 pounds worth of speakers in his twin.
Yep.
And now he's got 7 pounds worth of speakers. Man, that's a big
difference.
All of a sudden you feel like you've been working out. You know, say, hey, I picked this up.
Yeah. That's
so
good.
It kind of depends, you know. I accommodate people for, you know, what they can do as well as what they want to listen to.
Okay.
You know, because you don't see any real old bass players playing Ampeg SVTs with 2 cabinets anymore. You just don't.
Right.
I mean, that's 600 pounds worth of stuff.
They don't have someone to tote it around.
Yeah, well, if you're famous, who cares, right? You got roadies. Not everybody's got roadies.
Do you prefer doing the closed back or open back, or it doesn't matter?
Open back.
Open back. Why?
Well, because the sound is just it's broader, you know, and if you can get within 3 or 4 feet of a wall,
right,
or something like that, it comes out the back and shoots. You know, it's good. It makes the amp sound big. You know, Roy Buchanan used to turn his amp to the wall at about a 30-degree angle.
Right.
You know, I'm from D.C. I mean, I played with Buchanan 3 weeks once when his regular organist had the pneumonia.
Mm-hmm.
And he always had this amp, whatever amp he had. I mean, there's all kind of stories about what amps Buchanan had, but he had whatever he could get.
Okay.
You know, and he always had it turned to the wall.
Right.
You know,
and
it made it sound big.
And that's what he needed. That's what he wanted.
Yeah, that's what he wanted.
How did he know?
I don't know. You know,
you have somebody that had a good ear standing out there telling him, or he just happened on it?
I think, you know, there's some guys that like to take, back in the day before there was wireless rigs, you know.
Yep.
They'd take a 60-foot cord and they'd just walk out in the club and play the amp from back there, you know, and say, yeah, this is what I want to hear.
Okay. Okay. So have you settled on like a particular kind of tone stack design, or do you vary that as well?
Well, for the stuff, it depends on what I'm building. If I'm building a guy a classic Fender,
mm-hmm.
and I do some of that, you know, then I just leave it alone. I mean, you know, why improve on Leo Fender?
Okay.
If that's the tone the guy wants, well, then that's tone's going to come out of that tone stack, so why mess with it?
Right.
You know? The components used to realize that with do have some effect on how it sounds. Not a huge amount, you know.
So capacitor type selection,
yes.
Isn't that important?
Yeah, see, important is too strong of a word, okay?
Okay.
Let's just say that it makes a little bit of difference, and some people are very sensitive to it.
Okay.
You know, it's kind of like that. Being able to hear it is like a curiosity. For instance, some people can hear absolute phase.
Right.
They can listen to a speaker array and say that is phased negatively.
Okay.
Okay.
Sure.
I'm one of those people. I can hear that.
Okay.
But it doesn't mean anything, and I don't particularly prefer it either way. You know.
Right.
It's just a curiosity. Well, that's the same thing with the components you actually use. You know, the brand or type or whatever in a tone stack. It can make a difference, but I don't consider it to be a huge difference. You know, and there's people out there that'll write pages and pages and pages about capacitor selection and all this stuff.
Yep.
Most of that's bullcrap.
What about the resistors? They have the same issue on the resistors.
Resistors, I pretty much don't use anything but military spec metal films.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't care for carbon comp, you know.
Even on the bigger resistors?
Carbon comp equals noise.
Sure. Okay.
You know, and not only noise, but they drift when the relative humidity changes or the temperature or stuff like that, you know.
Right.
Even mil-spec carbon comps are drifty. So I like metal film resistors. The bigger resistors I'll use metal oxide or sometimes metal composition,
right,
which are new and expensive. But the mil spec, like the RN60CDE spec resistors, they're half-watt resistors, but they say rated to 3/4 of a watt. You know,
right.
So that gives you a little room there to not have to pay for a 1-watt resistor when you don't need it.
Sure.
And they're 1% typically. You know, I buy them on a surplus market. I mean, you get fabulous stuff, mil-spec stuff, and they sound great.
Okay.
You know, the only significant, I don't even think it's significant, the only difference I hear between mil-spec metal films and carbon comps is that the mil-spec metal films are quiet as a mouse pissing on a cotton ball.
Sure.
And that's what you want.
Oh, right.
Especially if you're going to crank the amp up a whole lot. You don't want to hear it sit there hissing and stuff.
No.
That's nasty. I don't like noise.
No, and all those resistors are going to
And some of that stuff,
They're going to get worse as it amps.
I just had one that fell out of a. Yeah, here we go. I got these from a surplus joint. Look at the packaging on this resistor. Okay?
Oh, there you go.
It's light tight. It's EMP proof. That's a metallic. It really, it's literally, you know.
Yep.
And well, you can't. They're really hard to get apart. But on the inside, it's light tight, man. Look, black.
Nice.
See, so this is as good as it was when it went in 1968 or whenever it was.
Right. Right.
And there it is.
One resistor in the bag.
One resistor in that bag. Now that comes out of the $800 toilet seat school of defense design. You know, see? And
that's going in someone's amplifier.
Yeah, that will go in somebody's amplifier. It's RM60C. 34. That's 3.4 megs. That'll go in the reverb circuit on a Fender style reverb.
Okay.
Nice parts, man. And that cost me maybe a quarter.
Right. Right.
You know.
Good.
So. Look what you're leaning on there. Have you ever seen one of those?
This thing here?
That's a Fender Bantam bass. Look at the speaker.
No. Real? Oh, wow.
It came stock that way. That's a Yamaha driver.
Yep.
You know, Fender Bantam bass. I think they only made it for 2 years.
Right.
It's 35 watt output circuit. So it's kind of like a Vibrolux.
Sure.
Output circuit. The transformer's a little beefier, but not much. This guy's having a different baffle put in it so he can use a real speaker. But that's cool. You don't see many of those.
I've never seen anything like it. What's the material of the cone?
I believe it's styrofoam.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's white, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think it's white, yeah.
It's white.
It's some kind of foam. It's foam. I don't know if it's styrofoam, but it's foam.
Is it still functional?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, it works good. That's why he's having another baffle made, so he can drop a baffle in and try a bunch of different 15s. And if none of them sounds better, he'll just put the original one back in.
That's cool.
Yeah, he was going to have me put reverb in it because there's a lot of real estate inside there, a lot of air.
Yeah.
You know, in the chassis.
Right.
There's only 2 preamp tubes and an output stage.
Right.
But he decided that would cost too much. So.
Sure. Sure.